Exactly where to begin. I have a background in cybersecurity. I think it's fair to say that I was the primary person who contributed security expertise to both Wireless Heart and ISA 100 11A. I am the convener for the working group that is producing cybersecurity standards for industrial automation in the IEC, and I'm going to talk about the status of that work and some reorganizations that are happening, some recently introduced work from the Netherlands, which is very exciting, and also, but my presentation does not have all of these great graphics, in part because I am retired and I no longer have a company to help. I need to talk, don't I? Okay. So this is the outline of my talk. I'm first going to refer back to a presentation, which I wish I had time to actually give you further, that Dr. Hans Daniel did in Berlin in 2006, in which he compared the history of reliability and safety and security in the automation world to the beginning of the Bible, Genesis, book 1, verse 1. But the end of it, he showed a structure that he believed that we needed, and I should say that he had been, besides working for industry, he also had experience working for the German security agency, BSI. We're going to talk about the series of standards. We now have 12 standards. The slide I gave the translator said 14, but that's an error. We are changing it to 12. And I will go into each of these things and then give you a detailed example from this new work that has come in from the Netherlands, and talk about how we are partitioning the work, because this work is not just being done in the IEC, it's being done in a number of different organizations with shared responsibilities. And then how we are solving it, problems, and how everyone worldwide can participate, because all meetings are electronic. Even if there are meetings in person, there is always electronic capabilities for people to come in, if you can stay awake at that time zone. But I once attended a week of meetings in Germany where I was in Phoenix, Arizona, by getting up at midnight my time each day. So it can be done. Anyway, to go on. This is the slide from Dr. Hans Daniel's presentation of the first automation forum like this that was done in Berlin in 2006. He said there were 3 classes of users of these standards, and basically there are device providers, component providers, there are system integrators, and there are the people who own and operate the systems, the organizations, the companies that own and operate the systems. And you will see that as we go to the standards itself that we are working on, they are organized very similarly. There is a series of standards that are general, that provide information as a basis for all of the other work. There is a series of standards for the asset owner. There is a series of standards for the system integrator, which might be the company that owns the product, or it might be someone on contract, some company on contract. And there was a series of standards for the component provider. Now, those of you who are familiar with the past structure of this IEC 62443 series, this is a reorganization that I expect to be approved on Friday of this week. That's why the number of documents has gone from 14 to 12. The most interesting of these, you'll notice that almost all of these have a blue background. They are coming from the ISA 99 cybersecurity effort, which also has many of the same members as the IEC effort. For a long time, people belong to both. And the history of this is we tried to do the work in the IEC and we found we could not reach agreement. And so we moved to an area where people were meeting more frequently with more agreement in ISA. But the green item here has just come in from the Netherlands. And I will talk about it further as we go on and give an example from it. So the first subseries, the general information. The exciting thing here is that a concept has been developed for security assurance level, that is similar to the safety integrity level that many of you are familiar with. The difference is that safety integrity level is a scalar value, a single dimension value, and you have a rank 4 different levels of safety integrity, as well as none. And in the security assurance level, it is a 7-dimensional vector. There are different aspects of security, but each one of them has a 4 different rank values, or none. So it is very similar to having it allows, for the first time, a way to think about security in an engineering sense, in a comparison sense, in a almost numeric sense. It provides some kind of quantitative and not just qualitative measure of security. There's already a first edition of this published as a technical specification because it had no things in it that one had to conform to. Now there will be a second edition that's an international standard. There will be a master glossary, and this will just be a technical report because it is a place where all of the languages, the words are collected from the other parts. So it gets changed every time one of the other parts gets changed, potentially. Then there are a set of security compliance metrics. Again, we are trying to bring engineering to security, so there are real metrics that allow to measure different aspects of security and to say whether this is better or worse and how much. And it will be used in each of the other three sub-series, the ones for asset owners, the ones for system integrators, the ones for component providers. Again, this is our master slide, and I have just put it in the set many times. For the translators, it's the same slide. You don't need to translate it. So we will now talk about the asset owner standards. The first one talks about establishing an industrial automation control system security program. There is a first edition that is published, but it received negative ballot comments because it was not well aligned with the ISO IEC 27000 series of security standards that the IT professionals work from and that are used for auditing. So a new edition is being created in conjunction with the people that developed this series to align it and to align it with a new ISO Guide 83 that is coming out that is required for all system management standards. They have a common outline they are going to be required to follow. The second part of this talks about how one creates the program and how one operates the program. One of the reasons to align this with the ISO IEC 27000 series is it makes it easier to take people who are trained in IT security and convert them so that they are trained in industrial security, which has different considerations. In IT security, when something goes wrong, their natural response is to stop the network. When you have an exothermic process, that's probably not a good idea, to stop the network, to stop the communications and have the plant explode. So there are different considerations, but increasingly we are seeing that the people who go into industrial security have a background in regular computer information theory security, information technology security. Part 2.3 is patch management, and this is being developed to align with Microsoft Windows practices because it takes into account how many of the systems today use Microsoft Windows. And then the new part that is coming from the Netherlands is the certification of supplier security policies and practices, and I have an example from this that will follow. This I find very exciting, and I am discovering in the United States that I have now, I think at last count, almost 20 people who have suddenly become interested in the standard that were never interested in industrial security standards before, but who are coming from the cybersecurity community and have said they want to comment on this document that is now out in draft. Again, our master slide, we will go next and look at the system integrator standards. The first of these is a technical report, and it will stay a technical report. It just gives background security technologies that are useful for industrial automation control systems. So it is really an information report that you might be able to share with management. The second part here tells how to partition a plant structure, the information structure of the plant, maybe the physical structure of the plant, into what we talk about as zones and conduits, just as you might have different ES zones for intrinsic safety, you can have different security zones, things that are more important, things that are less important. And then you have to worry about the conduits, the channels between those zones, the means of communication between the zones. And so this standard provides a methodology for partitioning systems into subsets that each subset has different security capabilities. And again, it is based on the security assurance level concept. The third standard in this set is system security requirements and security assurance levels, and this goes into detail about requirements and tells how the requirements correlate with the security assurance levels. So for a given assurance level, you have some requirements that you can start with, and then you have others that you must add to go to higher security and so forth. This is already 75% complete. It's already once circulated to the national committees in the IEC as a document for comment. I'll talk about why it's a document for comment in a little bit, right here. Documents for comments are used for documents that start in ISA 99 to keep the copyright in ISA until the document is ready for voting. That permits the development to stay in ISA and the copyright to stay in ISA. And this is just a technical issue relative to the IEC Central Office that has been agreed by TC65. Go back to our master slide again. We're going to talk about the component providers. There are only two standards here. We had a number of different standards that have been identified, but they have gotten to the point of almost ready to be written, and people working on them discovered that about 80% of each standard was the same as the others. So you can't have that much duplication. So instead they were merged into one. And that became what we have here, technical security requirements for components. Again, it uses the security assurance level concept, and it is based on standard IT practices. So it is something that people who are already familiar with IT elsewhere in industry can be used to provide and to support. Then we have product development requirements. Again, it's based on the security assurance level concept, and it builds on accepted software and hardware development and maintenance methodologies. So these are methods of developing systems to make them secure and of having technical requirements. So this is process and procedure. This is product related, if you will. Come back to this slide, and now we're going to look in detail at this new contribution from the Netherlands, which is certification of IACS supplier security policies and practices. Okay, it originated with WIB. I didn't put the acronym for WIB, let me back up. It's the International Instrument Users Association. It's down on the bottom line here. The business case is that this was developed by major end users to reduce the cost of factory and site acceptance testing. This is not something that we originally foresaw in this IEC 62443 series. This has just come in from across the pond, actually, from Europe, into an effort that was largely being led in the US, though with membership from all over the world, and many of you here actually are involved in the ISA 99 work. It has 3 certification levels, like the Olympic medals, bronze, silver, and gold. And the expected amount of savings, if you meet the bronze level, it's expected it will save you 40% of the cost. Silver level, about 60%, and the gold level, perhaps 75% of the cost of acceptance to factory